Okay, so now we're going to go on to the wrist and hand. So for your bones here, we have carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. So you can also see that here we divide them into distal, middle, proximal. So distal is furthest away, proximal is closest to your wrist. Those are your phalanges, then we have metacarpals, and then we have the carpals. Okay? You're going to need to know every one of these carpals and keep them in order from proximal row and distal row. And then we'll know base, shaft, head. Those ones are the easy ones. Okay? So that's going to be your bones and your bony landmarks for your wrist and hand exam. Okay, so now we're going to flip a few pages over and go past some of the muscles we've already done. And we're going to start with our forearm and wrist muscles. So we left off at triceps, so now we're going to go over here to page 31 and go with our flexor carpi radialis, or FCR. So as we go through this, you can write in the first letter of every one of these. There will be a few exceptions, and I'll kind of show you how to write those in. But as far as origin goes, we're going from medial epicondyle, and then we're going to go to the metacarpals. Okay, I'm not going to have you remember which fingers. Then we're going to do flexion and abduction of the wrist, or also known as radial deviation. Okay, again, those are synonyms. Then we have the median nerve, kind of palpation. We have our little box here that says the flexor carpi radialis, and the flexor and extensor carpi radialis will abduct that wrist or do radial deviation, which is this motion here. Flexor carpi ulnaris. So again, you can do FCU. We're going to originate from the medial epicondyle and then the ulna and the olecranon process. We're inserting on the pisiform carpal, hamate, and the metacarpal. Actions are flexion and adduction, or ulnar deviation, and this is where you go toward your ulnar side or pinky side. That's ulnar deviation. And then you have your ulnar nerve. This one you can palpate, and then this is just your little information box. Kind of gives you where that ulnar nerve passes. And you'll use this to do flexor and extensor to adduct. Okay, those are kind of your keys in that box. Palmaris longus. So if you squeeze your hand like this, you can see mine pop out right there. That's your palmaris longus. Not everyone has that. So if you can't find yours, it is okay. And I will abbreviate that PL. Medial epicondyle, you have the palmar aponeurosis and the flexor retinaculum. Okay, so this is not inserting onto a bone, this is just inserting onto connective tissue. So these are connective tissues. This is only an assister muscle, so it'll assist with flexion. Does not have a primary action, because some of you don't have one. Okay, have your little boxes here. It goes on the fascia. It's got a lengthy tendon. A lot of times we use this if you have it to repair tendons, or you might also have an absent one. Okay, now we're going to kind of go into that forearm. So here's your forearm motions, and this is this supination, pronation, or also helping with the elbow flexion. So we have the pronator teres, medial epicondyle coordinated process, inserting on the radius, and it's going to do pronation and assist in flexion of the elbow. You can see how it crosses two joints here. And we have the median nerve. You can palpate. Okay. You have a little information box there. It isn't a diagonal. Then you have your pronator quadratus. Okay, you can see how it has like four sides, almost very equal. That's kind of that's in that box there. We're going from starting from the ulna, inserting on the radius. So Your radius is the only bone that moves. Your ulna always stays put. So most of the time you're going to see everything inserting onto the radius because that is the movable bone. And then it does pronation. The name tells you what it does. And you have the median nerve. Flexor digitorum superficialis. This is FDS. We're going to originate from the medial epicondyle and the coordinated process of the ulna and the oblique line of the radius. We're going to insert onto the phalanges. We're going to do flexion of the forefingers at PIP. So PIP is our proximal. That's this guy right here. And then we're going to assist with wrist flexion. And we're going to do median nerve. Again, you have your palpation. And then you have your little information box here. So we'll do FDP. This is your profundus. It lies deeper than the superficialis. We have the ulna, interosseous membrane, inserting onto the phalanges. Its action is flexion of dip. Make sure you got that. And assists with wrist flexion. So here's your dip joint right there. You have on your thumb side, you have the median nerve. On your ulnar side here, you have your ulnar nerve. Okay? So this is the radial ulnar fingers. Gotta pay attention to that little box there. So profundus means deep, and we're going to the dip instead of PIP this time. Flexor pollicis longus. We're going to originate off the radius and interosseous membrane, and then pollicis, this word here, means thumb. Okay? So we're going to flex the thumb at the IP joint. So on the thumb there's no proximal or distal, you just have this IP joint here. And then you have the median nerve right there. Okay, that kind of just summarizes what I just said. It'll also help flex MP in the CM. Okay, your brachial radialis. This is a elbow forearm muscle. Sometimes you will see me do BR for brachial radialis. We're going to originate from the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus. Humerus will be your main word there. And then the styloid process. We're going to do flexion of the elbow in a mid position. So this is your curling muscle, I say, when you're taking a drink. So it's this muscle here that does this action. This is mid position. And we have a radial nerve there. You can palpate this one. If you act alone, you will bring this forearm into the mid position. It does not help with supination or pronation. Extensor carpi radialis. Okay, we got our supracondylar notch and our epicondyle, lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and we're going to the metacarpal. It's going to help with extension, that's what that name tells you, and then abduction or radial deviation, and this is your radial nerve. You can palpate this one. If you do this alone, you will extend your hand more in a radial like this, rather than fully if you do not have your ulnaris. So that's what that box is telling you there. Now we have the little one, ECRB. We're going to do the lateral epicondyle to the metacarpal, does extension, it's the radial nerve, and you can also palpate that. Okay, that kind of says the same thing as well. Okay, now we need to go to the ulnar side, so this is ECU. We're going to originate from the lateral epicondyle and the ulna. We're going to insert on the metacarpal. We're going to do an extension and assist with ulnar deviation or adduction. We'll have a radial nerve. Okay. This is stating they have to work together to do ulnar deviation, and then you will extend alone. You'll extend more to the ulnar side of it. Perfect. Now we're going to get more into the wrist and the MP joints. So now we have the extensor digitorum, the lateral epicondyle, inserting onto the extensor expansion. That's on the fingers. We're going to assist our action. We're going to extend at the MP joints, which are right here. And then we're going to assist with wrist extension, and you can see that because the tendons cross the wrist joint right there. And we have the radial nerve. You can palpate this one. Okay. You have 4 prominent tendons. And it cannot extend the distal phalanges. That's where the lumbricals come in place. That's going to kind of be here in a few pages. Extensor digiti minimi. We have E, D, M. So when you see these two words together, this is your pinky or little finger. Originate from the lateral epicondyle. We're going to go on to the finger extensor expansion. Do an extension at the MP joint here and assist with extension of the wrist. We have our radial nerve. Okay, kind of mixing it up into some more forearm muscles. This is your supinator. I might abbreviate it like that. I might spell out the whole word. We have a lot of origins here. So we're going to originate from the lateral epicondyle, the annular ligament, the radiocollateral ligament, and then we're going to originate onto the ulna. And now we're going to insert onto the radius. Okay, so you can see it has some radial attachments. It kind of wraps around. This is your primary supinator muscle here. You have the radial nerve. You can palpate this one, and you can feel this if you do slow supination. It'll pop out. Okay, that radial nerve runs between superficial and deep, so that can come entrapped and cause some issues. Okay, extensor indicus, EI. So this is the index finger. That's what this word means. We're going to originate on the ulna, interosseous membrane. We're going to insert onto the index finger. There's an extension of the finger and then assist with the extension of the wrist, radial nerve. You can palpate it, and this just has a little explanation of those 4 deep muscles in that same vicinity. Okay, abductor pollicis longus. This is where we start adding other letters in, so it's going to be A, B, pollicis longus. So you know it's abduction. We're going to originate from the radius, ulna, and interosseous membrane, and this is pollicis. Remember, that means thumb. So we're doing abduction of the thumb and assisting with radial deviation or wrist abduction. Radial nerve. Now we're going to go to the opposite here. Okay, this is part of your anatomical snuff box. Abbreviated EPL. Start from the ulna, interosseous membrane to the thumb, phalanx of the thumb. does extension of the IP. Wrist abduction, it's the radial nerve. You can palpate it. Want to make sure you pay attention to this box. It's an anatomical snuff box. You have the extensor pollicus brevis. You have the extensor pollicus longus, creating the borders, and then you have the scaphoid carpal bone that creates the floor. Alright. Okay, so we still have another thumb muscle. Thumb's got a lot of power in it. Phalanx of the thumb. Action is extension at the MP joint. Remember, that's right down here. Oh, right there. Radial nerve. And palpate it. Okay. This is another one of those anatomical snuff box. Okay, we have our abductor pollicus brevis, flexor retinaculum, trapezium, scaphoid, inserting onto the phalanx of the thumb. Does abduction of the thumb, the CM joint. You'll also hear me see the CMC joint, carpal metacarpal joint. Palpate there. Okay, these are good little information boxes here. Alright, adductor pollicus. So we do ADP. We're going to start on the metacarpal, and then we're going to do capitate, trapezoid, trapezium, inserting onto the phalanx of the thumb. This is going to do adduction, tells you in the name. It's going to be ulnar nerve. And this is going to have the bulk of your thumb right there. Creates that little web. Okay. Flexor pollicus brevis. Flexor retinaculum, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, inserting onto the phalanx.